Maryland and Pennsylvania sit right next to each other on the map, but financially, they treat retirees like they're living in two different countries. One of these states will help you keep more money every year you're alive. The other will help your kids keep more money after you're gone. And most people have no idea which is which until it's too late. This isn't just a tax comparison. It's income, housing, property taxes, cost of living, healthcare access, lifestyle, and what happens with your estate. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which state fits your numbers and which one quietly costs you six figures over a 20-year retirement. Hey, I'm Jim Stevenson, a realtor here in the Philadelphia suburbs. I've helped hundreds of families make this exact decision, PA or Maryland, and the right answer changes based on your income, your state size, and your lifestyle priorities. If you want someone to walk through your actual numbers with you, book a call using the link below. We'll map out what makes sense for your situation. And if you're still in research mode, grab my free Philadelphia Suburbs relocation guide using the link in the description or the QR code on screen. It'll give you a clean overview of the entire region before you start looking at homes. Here's the truth almost no retiree hears. Pennsylvania helps you keep more money every year you're alive. Maryland helps your kids keep more money when you die. That's the real decision. Annual cash flow versus long-term legacy. Most people look at one piece of this puzzle, usually the income taxes, and they stop there. That's the mistake that costs families over $200,000. Let me show you how the math actually breaks. Pennsylvania's advantage starts with retirement income. PA taxes almost none of it. Pensions are exempt. 401k withdrawals, exempt. 403b withdrawals, exempt. Traditional IRA withdrawals, exempt. Social Security, exempt. If you're fully retired and not working part-time, your PA state income tax bill may literally be zero. Maryland is the opposite. Maryland taxes most retirement income at some of the highest combined rates in the country. Let me say that again. If it's not Social Security, Maryland usually taxes it. The state rate goes up to 5.75%. Every county adds another 2.25% to 3.2%. So high earners can hit almost 9%. Maryland offers a $39,500 pension exclusion, but here's the trap. It usually doesn't apply to IRA withdrawals, and that's where most retirees keep most of their savings. What that actually means is if you're pulling $60,000 a year from your IRA, Pennsylvania saves you about $5,400 annually on that income alone. Let me show you what this means in real dollars. A middle income couple pulling $25,000 from their IRA, PA taxes none of it. Maryland taxes nearly all of it. A higher income couple pulling $60,000 plus from their IRA, PA taxes none of it. Maryland can tax over $100,000 in total income after the exclusion. Annual difference for a middle income couple, roughly $1,300 in Pennsylvania's favor. Annual difference for a higher income couple, roughly $5,600 in Pennsylvania's favor. Over 20 years, that higher income couple saves over $112,000 just by living in Pennsylvania instead of Maryland. But this is only half the picture. A lot of people stop here and make the wrong decision. And here's what they miss. Most retirees don't compare PA and Maryland property taxes correctly. Pennsylvania property taxes look high and sometimes are. Effective rates run 1.19% to 1.41% statewide, and some counties like Lancaster hit 2.21%. A $700,000 home in Lancaster County, roughly $15,000 per year. A $700,000 home in suburban Philly, places like Bucks or Montgomery County, between $7,500 and $9,800 depending on the school district. And the key reason Pennsylvania's rates run higher is local funding. About 51% of Pennsylvania's school funding comes from local property taxes, and that forces the rates up. Maryland property taxes are lower and more predictable. Statewide averages sit between 0.9% and 0.95%. Anne Arundel County, roughly 0.98%. Frederick County, about 1.09%. A $700,000 home in Anne Arundel, about $6,800 per year. Most Maryland counties also cap yearly increases, often 2 to 4%. So here's the difference in one sentence. PA gives you lower potential bills, but Maryland gives you stable predicted bills. But property tax is only one piece. Maryland gets more expensive in other ways, which this is where most people are surprised. Maryland's overall cost of living runs 17.6% higher than Pennsylvania. Utilities, Maryland's higher. Pennsylvania's utilities index is 83.5. Maryland households average $510 per month. That's about $6,100 a year in Maryland versus $4,500 in Pennsylvania. The The difference is $1,600 annually just on keeping the lights on. Groceries, Maryland's higher. Maryland grocery costs run about $1,000 more per year for a typical couple. Housing, Maryland's higher. The average Maryland home costs $419,000. The average Pennsylvania home costs $281,000. That's a $138,000 difference up front. Everyday spending, Maryland's higher. Sales tax is 6% in both states, but Pennsylvania taxes certain prepared foods and drinks that Maryland does not. Maryland also exempts all groceries from sales tax, which adds up for retirees on fixed incomes. So you're paying an extra $2,600 to $2,800 annually just to exist in Maryland. Pennsylvania gives you more purchasing power day to day. Maryland protects your legacy long term. Now here's the part nobody sees coming, and this is where Pennsylvania versus Maryland completely reverses. Maryland has both an estate tax and an inheritance tax. People hear that and they think that sounds terrible, but here's the truth. Maryland charges your kids nothing, zero, on estates under $5 million. Pennsylvania charges 4.5% on everything your kids inherit, everything. This isn't just tax planning, this is making sure your family keeps what you earned. So here's what that looks like. $1.5 million estate passing to your kids. Pennsylvania, $67,500 in tax. Maryland, zero. $5 million estate. Pennsylvania, $225,000. Maryland, zero. Even a $7 million estate, which is over Maryland's threshold, still comes out ahead in Maryland. Pennsylvania would charge $315,000. Maryland's estate tax on the amount over $5 million is about $160,000. Maryland saves your heirs about $155,000. So here's the real financial question. Do you want to keep more money while you're alive, or do you want your kids to keep more money after you're gone? There's really no wrong answer, but there is a right answer for your numbers. Let me show you 3 real profiles and which state wins for each one. I worked with a couple from North Jersey retiring with about $120,000 in annual income and a $2.2 million estate. They were convinced that Pennsylvania was the move because of the income tax savings. I walked them through the inheritance tax math. Pennsylvania would have taken $99,000 from their kids. Maryland was zero. Maryland saved their family about $50,000 net, even after the higher annual costs. They bought in Anne Arundel County. I also worked with a couple pulling $250,000 a year from retirement accounts with a $3 million estate. Pennsylvania's annual income tax savings were over $7,500 a year. So that's $150,000 over 20 years. Maryland's inheritance tax savings were $135,000. Pennsylvania was actually better for them once we factored in the compounding effect of those annual savings. So they stayed in Bucks County. Here's what that tells you. Profile 1, middle-class couple, $105,000 annual income, $700,000 home, $1.5 million estate, leaving everything to kids. Pennsylvania saves them about $1,300 a year in income taxes. Maryland costs about $2,600 more per year in cost of living. The net annual Pennsylvania advantage was $1,200. Over 20 years, that's $24,000 saved. But Maryland saves their kids $67,500 in inheritance tax. The net income, Maryland wins by $43,500. My recommendation was Maryland. Profile 2, higher income couple, $200,000 annual income, $700,000 home, $5 million estate. Pennsylvania saves them about $5,600 a year in income taxes. Maryland costs about $2,600 more in cost of living. Net annual Pennsylvania advantage is $3,100. Over 20 years, that's $62,000 saved. But Maryland saves their kids $225,000 in inheritance tax. The net outcome, Maryland wins by $163,000. Recommendation, Maryland. Profile 3, ultra high net worth couple, $200,000 annual income, $1 million home, $7 million estate. Pennsylvania saves them about $5,600 a year in income taxes. Maryland costs about $3,200 more per year in cost of living. Net annual Pennsylvania advantage, $2,500. Over 20 years, that's $50,000 saved. Estate impact, Pennsylvania charges $315,000. Maryland charges about $160,000. Maryland saves $155,000. The net income, Maryland wins by $105,000. Recommendation, Maryland. So here's the pattern. For the vast majority of retirees, anyone with an estate under $5 million passing to their kids, Maryland wins on total wealth preservation. The annual income tax hit in Maryland is real. The higher cost of living is real, but the inheritance tax savings are bigger. Now let me give you the lifestyle piece, because money isn't everything. If you need the coast, Maryland wins. This is where Maryland's Eastern Shore comes into play. Chesapeake Bay, Annapolis, Ocean City. If water matters, PA can't compete. If you prefer forests and mountains, Pennsylvania wins. The Poconos, Appalachians, lower cost, more space, smaller towns across Bucks and Montgomery counties and beyond. If you fly a lot, Maryland wins. Baltimore-Washington International Airport is centrally located in Anne Arundel County. It's more accessible than the Philadelphia International or Pittsburgh International for many retirees, and that's a huge quality of life difference. And here's one most people don't think about: healthcare access. Maryland ranks number 10 nationally for senior healthcare. Pennsylvania ranks number 24. Maryland has Johns Hopkins, which is ranked number 7 in the county for geriatrics. Maryland has 51 geriatric specialists per 100,000 seniors. Pennsylvania has Penn Medicine and UPMC. Both excellent, both nationally ranked. Pennsylvania has 47 geriatric specialists per 100,000. Both states give you access to world-class care. Maryland has a slight edge in rankings and specialist density. So let me give you the final decision guide. Choose Pennsylvania if you want to maximize your annual spending power, if you live heavily off your IRA or 401k withdrawals, if you want lower everyday costs, if you prefer mountain suburbs or small towns, or if your estate is going mostly to charity or non-lineal heirs. Choose Maryland if your estate is under 5 million. If you're leaving money to kids or grandkids, if coastal lifestyle matters, if healthcare access is a priority, or if you want predictable property taxes. This decision comes down to your income, your estate, and your lifestyle priorities. But here's what I can tell you. For most families with estates under $5 million, Maryland wins on total dollars kept in the family. And the window to make this decision is right now. Before you buy, before you establish residency, before it's locked in. Because once you're in, switching states in retirement is expensive and complicated. If you want help running your numbers and seeing which state actually fits you, book a call using the link below. And if you're still exploring the area, grab my free relocation guide. It'll make this entire process a lot easier. This is one of those decisions where getting it right the first time saves your family 6 figures, so don't guess. And if you're also weighing Delaware, I break down Pennsylvania versus Delaware retirement math in this video. The property tax and income tax trade-offs might surprise you. Links on screen now. Thanks for watching.